Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another I was about to say edition, and then also episode came out. So epidode, another edition of the Bulluminati podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Bond. Joined alongside me as always, Seth Varnadore, Robert Steeg. Guys, it's been a whirlwind of a week, and it's only Tuesday, so that's been fun. We'll get to the recap of USF Cincinnati. We'll preview Tulane. We'll do a AAC kind of update. But I wanted to kind of touch on one thing real quick that Jeff Scott shared in his press conference on Tuesday morning. Antonio Greer, his father died last Wednesday. And I think that may be the reason why Jeff Scott was a little emotional on Saturday, kind of discussing kind of everything that's kind of gone on with this team over the the 7 weeks since the season started or so. Obviously, our thoughts are with Antonio and his family. I've lost a parent. It sucks. I can tell you that. In 2 weeks, it'll be 7 years, which is pretty remarkable how quickly the time goes by. It doesn't get any easier. I use humor as a defense mechanism, so I don't actually have to discuss my feelings about that for health reasons or whatever. It's probably not the greatest, but it sucks, man. The good thing was Antonio was able to go see his father, who I guess had gotten pretty sick toward the last few weeks, and it was able to go see his dad when USF went down to Fort Lauderdale for the ECU game down there in Boca. So thoughts with his family. I can't imagine what he's kind of going through. But just wanted to kind of lead the show off with that. And if you guys have anything that you want to share, by all means. I just figured we'd kind of discuss it and kind of move on as best as we can. Really sucks for that guy.
Yeah, I went through the same thing. It's coming up on 14 years ago now, and it's still difficult to deal with. So it's not something that's going to go away, but it does get easier to deal with over time, especially if you just kind of shove it in the back of your mind and don't think about it, think about it ever. So, but yeah, it's a tough deal, but it's good he got to go see him, and he got to see him play, and really perform at a high level. So that's good stuff that he got to see him at this level of his career and all that kind of stuff. But also nice that he got to go see him before it happened and kind of say his goodbyes and kind of do all that stuff. So it sucks. It doesn't really get better for a long time, but it's something we're all probably going to have to go through at some point. So it's an unfortunate part of life.
Right. And, I'm fortunate that, I still have both my parents.
Brag about it.
Right. I know.
There's the defense mechanism kicking in there. Sorry, guys.
We're pouring our hearts out here, you jerk.
No, but I am sympathetic, right? Yeah, sympathetic to the situation, but it's an experience that no one looks forward to those kind of days, and as the years go on, as Christmas has passed and everything like that, you can get another year older, get another year closer, and it's something no one likes to think about, but it happens eventually. So all I can say is the thoughts, the positive vibes, and all the good feels are sent to the Greer family as they go through a very, very difficult time right now. And for Antonio Greer, I know he puts a lot of pride in being Antonio Greer Jr. Loves his dad and loves what his dad's done for him as well. So I can only imagine he's going to experience a tough loss like this within his family and grow from it and do something great with it as well, because that's kind of what he's been doing for his entire career.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I don't know, man, it sucks. I just kind of think about, so my best friend has a 7-year-old son that we just went to his birthday party. And so they're that kid and unfortunately my mom dying are always intertwined, I guess, for lack of a better word. And you know, glad Antonio was able to go see his father. I did not get that chance, which kind of haunts me to this day. I kind of put it off. It's like, oh, I'll go see her tomorrow, and then tomorrow never came. So if you guys get the chance, go see your loved ones, go see your family. But figured we'd kind of start the show, and just kind of acknowledging that, and we'll get into the football stuff here. Let's just kind of, I guess, hard pivot because we're really good at transitions on this show.
Speaking of the press conference,
right. Well, let's do this. Let's go to the mid-season, I guess, update of the AAC. So it's status, report card update, I guess, for everyone. Not too many surprises, I guess, near the top. Cincinnati is 5-1, 2-0 in the conference, followed by 5-1 Tulane, who are also 2-0. I guess that's probably the surprise given their 2-10 season last year. Central Florida, 4-1, 1-0 in the conference, followed by Memphis, Navy, Houston. That's a surprise. ECU, SMU, Temple, Tulsa, and rounding out the bottom there is your South Florida Bulls. Coming into this season, I didn't think Cincinnati would be as good as they are. I think seeing them in person kind of proved that they are a pretty good program. I think they just kind of played down to USF, if we're being honest here. And USF, like Florida, had a really good game plan against them early on. Tulane riding the ship and Michael Pratt remembering that he's actually a very good quarterback has been fun. But I think the story of the conference is Houston kind of being a tire fire.
You want to talk about a fall from grace? Everyone's got them penciled in for the New Year's 6 game, and they're struggling. They could end up, if they keep going to the track they're going, they might not even make a bowl game. So tough beat there to go from the tippy top to kind of scratching and clawing to get to a lower tier bowl game. So
yeah, absolutely. And Houston beat, was it SMU, right? No, Houston. Who did Houston? Memphis. Sorry, Houston needed
kind of a fluky
night. Scored 16 points in the last minute, 17 against Memphis over the weekend to pull back and actually steal victory from the jaws of defeat. I think we may start to have a discourse about is Ryan Silverfield the guy at Memphis, because it seems like maybe the lemon bootiness kind of rubbed off on him from Mike Norvell a little bit. Man, and I mean, Navy's kind of surprising, 2-1 in the conference, and I mean, they decimated, obliterated, destroyed. Otherwise, just tore Tulsa limb from limb last week.
Yeah, it's weird. You go back and look at their schedule. You open the season with a loss to Delaware where you score 7 points. Then you score 13 points in a loss against Memphis. Go on the road and beat East Carolina. Go on the road and only lose by 3 to Air Force, and then come back home and wax Tulsa. So very, very bizarre. Like you think USF's kind of been up and down this year. Navy's really up and down.
Yeah. And Tulsa, I think there may be a discussion about Philip Montgomery at Tulsa. I don't understand why he still, quite frankly, has a job. I think he's not been a very good coach for a very long time. He's actually now 1-7 against Navy in his career at SMU, or excuse me, at Tulsa. And he should have been fired after that 2019 USF game. The way he just kind of gave that one away. That was embarrassing on his part. But all in all, kind of it's a pretty bad conference. If we're just to kind of cut through the crap here, it's not a very good conference outside of maybe Cincinnati.
No, like you had even like 2019. Looking back at 2019, the first year I kind of came in and was really paying attention to the conference really closely. There was a lot of good teams. I thought that you had 4 or 5 at the top that were really good, and now the conference isn't as bad. And unfortunately, if you're USF, you haven't been able to take advantage of the conference being down a little bit. You don't have that quite top tier team. Cincinnati is probably the best team now. We saw, USF playing well can play with a decent Cincinnati team. So I don't think you have that juggernaut like you did last year in Cincinnati. I think they're still pretty good, and they're probably at the top, but there's not that unbelievable team. It just seems like there's a lot of parity. So you're going to see these teams kind of beat each other up as the season goes on.
Agreed. And I wanted to do kind of this exercise that we did prior to the season starting real quick, and we'll get into the recap of the Cincinnati game. QB rankings, because that's kind of how most, if you have a good quarterback in college football, especially in this conference, you're more than likely going to be pretty good, or at least middle of the pack. So prior to the season, we had ranked, or at least I had ranked, Clayton Tune number 1 in the conference. Just going to be quick, yes or no, do you still think he's the best QB in the conference right now as we're standing, 6-7 weeks in?
Steve, what do you think?
I was hoping you would take it first because of you did this to me last night too, Seth.
All right, I'll jump in.
Jump in there first.
I was talking so much, I was trying to defer. I think he's still probably near the top, but I don't know if you could kind of put him at the tippy top. He's been all right this year. It's not really his fault. I don't think that they've been as bad as they have. He's got 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Not terrible. Almost completing 65% of his passes. Throwing the ball, 36 times a game, 260 yards a game. I think he's still been pretty good. You kind of start to get into the what are your feelings on Holton Ayler's situation a little bit when you get into this?
Yeah, that was kind of why I stopped and hesitated for a second, because I was like, fuck, I actually do. I don't want to say it. I'm not going to say. I don't like what I was about to say there.
And should we discount anyone that's played USF?
I mean, he came crashing down.
Should we discount his numbers a little bit here?
There's a Holton Ayler-sized crater after what he was not able to accomplish last week versus a Tulane team that we will preview here in a little bit.
If you take out his USF game, he's got 10 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, which isn't much to write home about there. But he's had some good performances this year. I think Tune's probably still near the top. Bryant, I think, is probably up there as well. He's come in and played pretty well for Cincinnati.
I had ranked him 5th in the conference just because of as you go into it. So number 1 was Tune, 2 was Tanner Mordecai, 3 was Holton Ahlers, 4 was Seth Hennigan. I think Ben Bryant's probably better than Seth and Holton. I think his stock's rising. I think Cincinnati's going to be really good and probably will win the conference this year. I think they're pretty freaking deep. Their running backs are actually pretty good, and they were without one of their starting running backs last week, and it didn't really matter. I think Seth Hennigan's kind of probably trending down a little bit for me. Maybe it's a sophomore slump kind of thing, and then the American, they kind of figure you out like Michael Pratt was, and it takes you a little bit. He's put up decent-ish numbers. He hasn't turned the ball over, but I haven't really been impressed with him or Memphis this year, and maybe that's more of a Memphis thing and not a him thing.
Looking at his numbers, he's been decent. He's not putting up a ton he's putting up 250 yards a game, but he's got 10 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 7.7 yards an attempt, which isn't great, but it's not bad. Like, he's been pretty good. I think he's like, maybe you move him down to 5th or something.
Yeah. So. And then Tanner Mordecai, I still think he's pretty good.
Yeah, he's struggling a bit with turnovers, it seems like, this year, but
like
6 turnovers, under 60% passing.
There's like no good way to rank them because I feel like every time because I have all their stats pulled up over here, so that's why I'm glancing at this, and I can't make difference between 1 through 8. Like if you didn't show me the names, like no one is definitively like really the top guy, and then you give them 1 or 2 good games, maybe a bad quarter, a bad half, and all of a sudden statistically they drop like a fucking rock. Like
Yeah.
Davis Brin is leading the conference in passing yards and QB efficiency right now. I don't like no one has been overly impressive, which I think is testament to what Seth was kind of getting at with, no one's really, there's no world beater in the American Athletic Conference this year. I think there's perfectly fine teams. I said it last night. I don't think that there is going to be I don't think the New York 6 representative is not going to come from the AAC. Because I think there's just going to be too much infighting at this point. I'd imagine someone's going to trip up Cincinnati, and I don't foresee them giving a 2-loss Cincinnati team ranked higher than what would probably end up being like an undefeated Coastal team at the end of the year. So, QBs, and then there's a lot of also inconsistencies because as much as I hate to always include them in here, Ty Lavatai, I know statistically is not a very good quarterback when you look at passing numbers and everything like that.
Right.
I mean, he's running the Navy offense just like Navy. You got to kind of give respect to the scheme at hand there. He's turned it on the last couple of weeks, and has been a very efficient at getting the triple option.
Right.
So it's like,
where do we really rank Navy? Right. Like unless you have like a Keenan Reynolds or something like that, you kind of tend to just rank them lower just based on everything. But if Navy has a quarterback who can run the triple effectively, you might as well just put them at the top of the conference because that's just how good I don't know. I feel sometimes that the triple is probably one of the harder offenses to run just because especially with the limitations that the service academies have with weight limits and everything like that. If you can get someone who can run that offense effectively, you're just in such a better position. I think we've seen it over the last couple of years when Ken hasn't had that guy. It's been really tough for Navy. Plus, the not tackling during COVID was also a tough beat.
Yeah.
By the way, that was
big Navy. That
was the only time Philip Montgomery has been able to beat Navy was when they couldn't tackle, and also half their offense was out that game with COVID.
Right.
So, Philip Montgomery, let me give you some advice. Call up your local Pop Warner schools in the greater Tulsa, Oklahoma area, and find someone that has run the triple option and find a way to fucking defend it because you are terrible at defending the triple option.
Yeah, looking at Navy's quarterback, I think he's got to go to the bottom. He'd be at the bottom for me. Now the problem with saying that is even kind of what Steeg alluded to is there's also like a lot of decision making, which maybe he's making a lot of really good decisions and so it should be higher. But he's only averaging 2 yards a rush. He's not lighting the world on fire running the ball. We know he's not lighting the world on fire passing the ball. So I'd put him at the bottom pretty comfortably. Again, he's probably making a lot of good decisions in the run game, but looking at his numbers, he's got 69 rushes for 147 yards. This is not Keenan Reynolds or some Malcolm Perry or something like that. It's pretty bad. So I think he's your bottom for sure, and then there's kind of a jumble.
So who's your top?
I don't know. It's important. It's an important question.
I mean, really, all of this exercise was kind of my way of saying we really ranked Michael Pratt way too low. I had him 6th in the conference, and he's probably top 3, top 2. I like any Tulane quarterback at this point. I really do, man. I love a good Michael Pratt, man. And
he's got 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions right now, 250 yards a game, basically 9.5 yards an attempt.
And he
with
missed
almost 70%,
a game and a half.
Almost 70% completion percentage. So they're pushing the ball down the field. 9.5 yards an attempt means you're pushing the ball down the field a little bit. And he's completing 67.7% of his passes. So they've got the old throw game working there.
Yep. Yeah, that's
Careful with that language there, Seth. That was you almost said another thing that you shouldn't say. That
What?
throat game is working.
I would never say that
publicly.
The throw game.
Yeah. Let's jump into kind of the recap of Cincinnati. I think 28-24, USF led with 56 left in the fourth quarter. Man, Steve, I look at you and I get so nervous.
It's that mustache.
14:56 left in the fourth quarter. The Bulls had a chance to at least extend it or try to go for the win. Obviously, the fourth and one call, heard around the world was the talk of the town, and I think this is where Seth, you just kind of, if you want to take a round of applause, pat yourself on the back, do whatever you need to do, because we had that sewn up, drawn up, and dissected minutes after Jeff Scott's press conference on Saturday, and then he came in today on Tuesday and said the exact same thing, and it just kind of vindicates that you guys really should be watching the pregame, halftime, and postgame show of the Daily Stampede, because we are actually decently good at what we do, especially when Seth's talking. I just like to steer the ship and hear my mouth and hear my words sometimes, but make sure you check that out. We won't have it this week. We'll have
We'll have a post-game show.
We'll definitely have a post-game show for sure. We will be live and in person at Raymond James Stadium, 4:00 on ESPNU as they host Tulane at USF's homecoming. But be sure to check it out. We'll have the film room tomorrow. We'll dissect that 4th and 1 call even further, plus some other ones. But I figured, damn, it feels good to just call out the play. It literally happens, and then the coach vindicates literally everything we talked about post game.
Yeah, Jeff Scott, confirmed watcher in my mind of the post game show. Probably watched it on the plane going home.
Probably
should have put him in motion.
It's that simple.
That's all it is. If you guys keep watching, and hopefully we'll have more moments like that. I don't know if it'll ever happen again,
but the way that we're going, I think it might.
Hey, man, so we won today. If we win tomorrow, that's 2. And if we win the day after that, that's called a winning streak. It has happened before.
Amazingly.
That's right.
I had to think back to that one.
That's right. So quickly on Cincinnati, they look pretty good. They being USF, they went down and scored on their very first drive of the game. They took the ball and scored. Definitely a reach and something kind of out of Jeff Scott's modus operandi, some would call it. And it worked effectively. That first drive was great. Really mixed it in nice and well. Capped off by that 22-yard Brian Battie touchdown run. Battie finishes with 23 carries, 82 yards. Gary has 117 yards on the ground himself. I think he has a total of 331 yards total of offense, 2 touchdown passes to Xavier Weaver. The offense is good. It just a little bit more consistency in that this offense could theoretically score 35 points a game.
Well, since they started running him, they've been really good on offense. It seemed to be something they were holding back for some reason. I guess you see that, he's gotten dinged up a little bit, so maybe that's the reason. That would be a good one. But you kind of hold that back in some of your early games, and once they started doing that, that's kind of the key to the offense. Once they do that, everything else kind of flows from there. The run game's better, the passing game's better because you get to use play action a little bit more, and all that was the most frustrating thing going back and watching Louisville. Is after watching Florida, where they designed some great stuff, they really mixed it up with motion, quarterback run, all this kind of misdirection, pre-snap and post-snap. And you go to Louisville and you're just kind of running a lot of basic stuff and you just get waxed and blown off the field. You're like, well, what happened? That can't be a one game plan, right? There's
right.
Some good stuff in there that needs to carry over. And that's what we said after the Florida game. This is not fluky. This stuff can carry over. So they didn't carry it over to the Louisville game. You're like, what is going on here? But then you started to see a little bit more of it against ECU, and then against Cincinnati, you saw it from the start. So I don't know if they were watching and saw the wheel last week. Maybe that inspired them. But the wheel doesn't lie. And I thought their plan was much like the Florida game and creative and had a bunch of good stuff in it. And hopefully that's what we see the rest of the year going forward if everyone can stay healthy.
Yeah.
I was about to segue from that, Seth. I think I can kind of pinpoint what happened between the Florida to Louisville to ECU and then to what happened in the Cincinnati game. And I think Jess got kind of touched about it today in the press conference. Holy fuck, are they injured? Like,
Bro.
Like, this isn't, and I quickly glossed over it on Twitter today. This isn't like, a few guys have a bum hamstring and they're, dealing with some soreness or anything like that. These are like, this is like you have bad luck injury sliders on NCAA 14. Like, this is,
the injury sliders are at 100.
This is bad. It seems like it's mostly broken appendages.
Yeah.
Like, you have broken wrists, you have broken ankles, you have,
broken leg.
Yeah, you have, I think, 9 starters out right now. And of course, you have the depth and everything like that, but then your depth's starting to get hurt and dinged up and everything. And, you get out of the Florida game, kind of tail between your legs and everything like that. And then you go and look at your wide receiver room and you go, oh, shit, you're missing 5 wide receivers going into Louisville. 3 of them are your starters. So, no wonder you're having to go plain Jane and not do too much there. You can't really, with backup, with, third string guys, you got to throw out there. And then all of a sudden you come back home, tails really between your legs against Louisville. And then, oh, fuck, we have a Category 4 hurricane heading right towards us. So I'm sure at least getting some sort of consistency from week in and week out is going to be nice and getting some health back into it. But, I mean, it's something to be said that external factors started to lean in a little bit more over the last 3 weeks there. Not giving it an excuse, but also, putting a spotlight on it and say, hey, that's probably a really good reason why they, went back to the drawing board against Louisville.
Right.
That is true.
And Steeg, to that point, 14 scholarship players didn't travel to Cincinnati due to injury or otherwise. That's a lot of guys to be missing. Like Antonio Greer obviously was not there. Taquan Evans didn't play. Allegedly he traveled. Allegedly he dressed. Didn't play. TJ Robinson, Donovan Jennings, Kelly Joyner, Jaron Mango, Andrew Stokes.
You're down to what? You're like your 5th running back.
Yeah, so you've got 2 scholarship running backs right now, and Brian Battie and K'Wan Powell, and then you brought 2 walk-ons with you to Cincinnati. So at some point, I get, Seth, I think you talked in the pregame show on Saturday. The injuries may be a legitimate thing. It's just you may have just kind of burned it a little bit.
Yeah, that I was going to bring that up. We talked about it before the game. To me, it's kind of like these are legitimate issues, and this is a legitimate cause for losing. But at this point, when you've lost so much in so many different ways, nobody is going to care. Like, if it was year 1 and you had all these injuries, everyone would be totally understanding. I think even year 2, okay, they're showing progress, but they're injured. Year 3 at this point with all the losing and how it's gone and how the team looked like game 1 when they were mostly healthy. That kind of stuff is sitting in people's minds more. So it's more like, oh, injuries, these are excuses. Right. And I think that's the way it feels to a lot of fans. But there is some legitimacy to these, like Steeg mentioned, having basically all your receivers out for Louisville. Like that changes some things, right? And Bohannon being kind of dinged up a little bit against Florida and a little bit again this last week. Is that going to cause you to take that run game out, which really hurts your offense? So these are legitimate issues. I just think they're going to fall on deaf ears a little bit.
Yeah, and now Cincinnati, your Brad Cecil status is up in the air. Brad Cecil went out again at Cincinnati, kind of shuffled everything around. Dustin Hall slid over to center. Right tackle Mike Lofton, who came in and started playing right tackle after Donovan Jennings got hurt at left tackle and Trey Jacobs moved over to left tackle. Now he slid in at right guard, and now you got Darryl Bailey sliding in at right tackle. So the offensive lines had a shift. The only guy left that hasn't actually had to move positions is Demetrius Harris, and according to Jeff Scott, he's basically dealing with a numb foot. So,
That's good.
That's not great. That can't be good for you. You lose probably the guy who'd been playing the best along the defensive line over the last couple of weeks, and Rashad Cheney. He had ankle surgery. He's done for the year. I mean, we kind of got it. I kind of posed it in Slack earlier tonight. Like, do we just kind of chalk this season up as the season from hell just because of literally all of the injuries? And it's not like we can pinpoint it to, all right, so it's soft tissue. Are they getting overworked? It's like Jeff Scott joked about it in his press conference on Tuesday. Are they just not drinking enough milk? Like, how is this happening? It's not even like they're happening the same way. Like Donovan Jennings got rolled up on and broke his leg. Rashad Cheney just got twisted and broke his ankle. Like, you can't, over the course of a game, like this stuff happens. Brad Cecil has an abdominal injury. Mangum has an ankle. Kelly Joyner had a broken bone in his foot. He may be a week away. He started practicing. He's doing some individual stuff this week, but it may not be until after the bye week, which is next week, that you get Kelly Joyner back. Mikey Duke should be back. It's like, what? And then Jimmy Horn was limited with an ankle injury as well. So at this point, do we kind of just chalk up this as the season from hell and kind of reset everything?
I think internally you might think that, but externally, it's kind of, if you look at the results, they're not much different than the previous season. So externally, you're like, yeah, no, this is the same thing it's been. I think internally you realize that you have a better team and you're not quite able to showcase it because you have so many injuries. The ECU game, that's kind of one where we didn't talk about it a ton, but, being aggressive and playing man coverage like your fourth or fifth corner, having to be the guy that's playing on ECU's best receiver, and the ball is just going over his fingertips and you're catching it and getting, beaten man-to-man coverage. Like, yeah, you got beat, but it's also like you're playing your fourth corner. So that's tough. So you think, okay, if that's our best corner, he might be able to make a play on that ball. Maybe it's a different game, right? But and we can get into the, Jeff Scott math a little bit, but
the Jeff Scott Steiner math.
Yeah, but that's but there is something to it. I just don't think from the outside you're going to get a lot of people thinking, oh yeah, this year is terrible, because it's not like they've been really good and then all of a sudden they're really hurt and now they're bad. I think they would have been better this year if they weren't hurt, but they're hurt. So it's just the same as it's been the last couple of seasons.
It's not just that they're hurt. I mean, it's like like Chrissy kind of mentioned it. I mean, anything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong.
Murphy's Law, baby.
I mean, so yeah, bring in all these new defensive linemen because you need bodies along that defensive line. And then all of a sudden, two of them just immediately can't play. So, of the 8 guys that they brought in.
Right. I forgot about James Ash and Clyde Pender.
So you started with 8 defensive linemen that you brought in. And then now you knock off 2 right at the top. Don't even get them to fall. And then the injuries start piling up. And then all of a sudden you're having to shuffle bodies. And God bless you, Torian Hansford, for switching from DN to defensive tackle, because now to fill the bodies, this isn't even like a serviceable thing. This is like we need that guy in that position because there is literally no other defensive tackles that they could throw into that position right now, because everyone else is either injured or not eligible or can't play or anything like that. So, a position that we all thought would have an immediate turnaround can't, because you basically are back to where you were last year when you're having to throw on walk-ons and D2 players. And, bless Eddie Kelly and Jonathan Ross. They were probably going to get some good playing time if the game was out of hand, or if they were going to, win big or against Howard or something like that. They're probably not expecting much playing time this year. And here they are, being rotational along with Jaquez Williams and Jalen Hobbs. So, fuck. And then, of course, I just checked. USF has the 20th ranked toughest strength of schedule right now, according to the power rankings. So on top of all of the injuries, on top of everything else that's going wrong for you right now up to this point, you are also putting together one of the toughest schedules in the country, let alone Group of 5 football. So fuck, man, like this might as well be the season from hell. Like you couldn't like flip a dice and get you know a down, like even how the schedule was playing out. And I know we kind of mentioned it a few weeks ago. Like maybe if you didn't have BYU first and you have Howard first, maybe the season feels a little bit differently because you can kind of ease into the season a little bit more. But instead, you get your dick slapped by BYU, and
some people like that.
Yeah, right. But like, I mean, it's frustrating because like you really just want something to cling on to that's positive, and you just can't find it because nothing is going right now for them.
Yeah, I thought it was really funny. Jeff Scott, I think it was answering your question before you broke him, Nathan. Jeff Scott basically said the year he won a state championship as a high school head coach, they got every break imaginable, and kind of they had some players where they got a little bit lucky on their way there, got every break to win the state championship. He said, "Is this like all basically I'm paying for it all now this season?"
Right.
I thought that was kind of because I'd heard him talk about the year before and talk about all the breaks they got, and so it was kind of interesting that's kind of where his mind is going, and that's before you broke the poor.
Broke the poor man. I still feel pretty bad about that. It's tough, and you know we've kind of touched on it, man. He's not getting the benefit of the doubt, and that's the tough part. And you know, I was never out on him. I'm a little bit more in probably than I was a week ago. But man, I think we titled this podcast "Don't Poop the Bed" number 2. You can't as we jump into the Tulane preview. You cannot. And I mean cannot afford to do what you did after Florida. I don't care. Like, you can't do it.
Well, I think we had a question earlier about, you know, this. And this is a term that gets thrown around all the time now. Is this the Syracuse game? They got to win it, right?
You got to win it. You can't turn around the program in a loss.
Yeah. And then the Florida was the first one everyone said that about. Is this the turning point? And then next week, just come out and get whacked. Now, we mentioned there's some extenuating circumstances, but here you go. Round 2, option, or, you know, your opportunity 2 here to not go number 2 into the bed. We'll see if they do it. I don't know.
Ahead of the Louisville game, there was poop in Brody's bed, so I'll keep you guys abreast to the situation on Saturday. But good Lord, they can't do it. So we'll figure it out. As we jump into Tulane, we've kind of discussed Michael Pratt. They've got some really talented people, kind of across the board. Some really good wide receivers. I think 6 of their top 6 wide receivers all have at least 12 catches. Pratt likes to toss it around to a bunch of people. Willie Fritz kind of figured it out. He figured it out after a 2-10 season, which is pretty shocking. Overall thoughts: they're 5-1, 2-0 in the conference. Kind of overall thoughts as we kind of kick off Tulane here.
Well, first of all, they got a receiver. I'm assuming these guys are brothers. I think I mentioned them every time they play. You got Deuce Watts and Fat Watts. I mean, what a beautiful combination of names. You know, they may have. Do they have the best win in the conference this year? Like the best out of conference win?
Yeah, I mean, no one else really has.
Yeah, Kansas State's still ranked, right?
Yeah, Kansas State on the road. Is that the best out of conference win so far?
I'd have to say so. Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, I don't think anyone else really has anything relatively close to, you know, that level of win right now. I just going through off the top of my head, I don't think anyone else has played anyone quite ranked as high or as formidable. I think Cincinnati almost knocking off Arkansas would be your closest bet to it, but even then, I would probably venture to say that TCU is a little bit better than Arkansas. So
yeah, what I'm interested in seeing from this Tulane team is, as you look at their schedule, they have that big win against Kansas State. Then they go and lose at home to Southern Miss the following week. And their previous, the 2 wins before Kansas State were Massachusetts and Alcorn State. So you're not exactly playing this is not USF schedule, right? So in your win against Kansas, you score 17, and your loss to Southern Miss, you score 24, and your win against Houston, you score 27. Your win against East Carolina, you score 24. Now I know some of those were without the quarterback, but are their offensive numbers inflated by the first 2 games where they put up like 42 and 52 or something? 42 and 52. Is that somewhat inflated? It seems like they've been pretty consistent in terms of yards per play. But, how good is this offense? Is it, I mean, does it matter? I guess is the other question. Against this USF defense.
Jeez, they're just cutting it right to the core, huh?
Yeah, and then defensively, they're pretty strong in a few metrics. I think they're top 20 in available yards and net points per drive, which are 2 pretty interesting stats. So the defense, I think their advanced numbers are better than their like county numbers. Or the offense, it may almost be opposite, but like you mentioned, they were without that quarterback who is one of the top guys in the conference. So it's not going to be an easy game here, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either. And I think it's kind of previewing and looking at what Tulane's been able to do. The key numbers for me is always third downs. They're converting 37% of their third downs this year. On the flip side, opponents are converting 32%. The thing that kind of really spoke to me were their first quarter numbers and their third quarter numbers. They're outscoring opponents 38-3 in the first quarter, and then coming out of halftime, they're outscoring opponents 52-7. Now, those are pretty ridiculous numbers, regardless of who you're playing, to really kind of clamp down your first quarter. Your game plans have to be on point, and then your adjustments coming out of the half have to be on point. And they have been able to execute that both flawlessly. On the flip side, USF has not been able to do that much at all. I think your best bet was Cincinnati. They did a really good job. Score, interception, score. Unfortunately, it wasn't a touchdown, just settled for a field goal. And then the second half, I think Cincinnati scored pretty quickly going into the second half there in the third quarter. So that's kind of where USF has won or lost games in the first quarter. It's been Jeff Scott's MO for his entire career. I think we're at 12 of 24 that they've been outscored by 10 or more points after the first quarter. So they cannot start slow again, especially at homecoming with, I would venture to say, a very light crowd for a 1-5 team.
Yeah, and one of the most interesting things about the Tulane defense, just looking at it real quick, they've only given up 10 plays this year of 20-plus yards. That is good for second in the country. So 10 plays through 6 games over 20 yards. So they do not give up a ton of explosives. So they make you kind of execute down the field to score on them. And that's why you see those advanced numbers are so good, because they do not give you cheap ones. They make you earn it. And that's going to be a tough test. But in the games USF's played really well in, they've had some explosiveness, but it's been mostly they've been just slowly, methodically moving the ball down the field with the run game, getting themselves into third and manageable and converting and keeping drives going. It hasn't been like one huge play. There's been some of that, like you had the big run by Bohannon and you had a 20-plus yard touchdown, 22. But a lot of it was moving the ball kind of methodically down the field. So they're going to have to be able to do that again to beat this Tulane defense.
Right. And Tulane's strength is obviously going to be their secondary. I mean, that's the reason why they have not given up those explosive plays, is because of how well their secondary has played this year, which is just a far cry from how it was last year for Tulane, where they very much struggled in the deep passing game side of things. Some of the more interesting things that glancing through Tulane's repertoire this year was they don't seem to be too formidable in the front seven kind of things. They're not getting, a too terrible of tackles for losses and sacks.
I noticed that too.
It's a very weird statistical anomaly. I think they only have like
7 sacks.
7 sacks, and I think most of them came in the UMass and Alcorn State game. Actually, no, in the ECU. No, actually, never mind. Sorry, but Michael Pratt's been getting hit quite a bit, which is obviously how that injury came out. Kind of segueing into what I think USF might be able to hinge their cap onto, and what I kind of referenced earlier this week was, despite the injuries and despite the big statistical shortcoming by USF this year, which is points allowed, they're actually getting quite a lot of havoc plays. 9 sacks on the year so far, which tied last year's already. So, you're on good pace already, and getting additional tackles for losses. I think they're very close to being able to surpass last year's total, midway through this year, getting interceptions, getting forced fumbles, creating a shorter for your offense is going to come for USF. Tulane's kind of apropos to letting that happen. That's how they kind of lost to Southern Miss, was untimely sacks, untimely turnovers, and all of a sudden, you're looking long on 3rd and long, and it can kind of flip the game for you there. So that's kind of what I'm going to be looking forward to more than anything, is seeing if we can finally see some positive havoc plays that result in points on the board for USF that can potentially, get things to start rolling their way a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. For USF, I think that the key for me is if they can kind of replicate what they were able to do on the ground, against Cincinnati. I think they rushed for more. I think they rushed for as many yards as Arkansas did in game 1, and Arkansas beat Cincinnati. I think if they're able to do that against Cincinnati, they'll be able to do that against Tulane, because, Steeg, as you mentioned, their front seven's not great. I don't think we'll get to the predictions here in a second. I don't think USF wins, but I think they can be as effective as they possibly can be against this caliber of defense. I do expect Michael Pratt and those wide receivers to expose the DBs a little bit, regardless of how healthy they are. I don't see USF being able to create enough pressure to really get Michael Pratt off his spot.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough one, I think.
That's fair. Let's get into predictions. Let's hit that real quick. Just kind of recap last week. So technically we all picked Cincinnati to win. So good job by us. I think just kind of going by the numbers here. I think, Seth, you were the closest, like, overall point differential. I think you were within like 25-ish, which is pretty good given how close the game was. But let's jump into it. USF 1-5, 0-2 in conference play, right? Tulane 5-1, 2-0 in conference. ESPNU 4:00 Eastern on ESPNU. Saturday it's homecoming. The leading game, funny enough for those who may not be at the game, is Old Dominion at Coastal Carolina. So that'll be a fun game. That's a noon game, and then USF at 4, and then I think ECU, whoever they play, is the game after USF on ESPNU. Let's jump into it. Let's get Steeg. What is your prediction? USF, Tulane, homecoming, Ray J, the tens of fans in the stands.
God, I hate me. I want I want to do the stupid thing. I really do want to do the stupid thing. I am a mouse looking at a cheese trap. I know it is going to kill me. I have fallen for it so many times because I'm a fucking idiot.
Yep.
And I'm going to do it again because
Oh,
I'm a
God.
fucking idiot.
Fair.
I think USF 35, Tulane 31. Biggest fucking idiot USF fan in the world who just goes back to the cheese, eats the rat poison. Big fucking idiot over here.
I mean, and Lane Kiffin has warned us about rat poison.
I keep on looking at it.
Right? It was him, right? Was it Lane?
Yeah, it was him.
That's a Saban thing.
Saban thing?
He stole it from
I
Saban.
probably learned it from.
Yeah, he
from
stole
Lane.
it from Saban. No.
Fair. Seth, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm not gonna agree with Steeg here. I'm gonna go. Let's go 38-24 here. Tulane. I think I have to see this defense kind of stop somebody before I put a lot of trust in them. It hasn't happened yet. I don't think it'll start this week, but would be cool if it did. But,
It would be pretty cool if it did. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I don't see this defense stopping this team. I think 45-24. Just again, it's one of those things where this offense is too talented to not score some touchdowns. It's just that the defense is also pretty horrendous. And I think we saw that chart earlier I think it was Tuesday or yesterday, Monday, whatever day it was, kind of given the perfect encapsulation of USF football, where it's just them by themselves in the lower left quadrant. Offense is pretty close to being okay, but the defense is so far down, and that's kind of where it is. Prove to me that you can stop a nosebleed on defense, and I'll believe you. But until then, yeah, I feel pretty confident picking Tulane to cover, which the line is I've seen 12 in some spots.
Yeah, it's up to 12.
It's starting to get, not in one place it's at 13, but 12 seems to be the consensus. So
good Lord. It started at 10, I believe.
Yeah.
So that's how that is. I see Chrissy 28-21 Tulane. Heath 41-20 to Tulane, I would assume. Yeah, I just really don't see USF being able to stop them. The offense will put up some numbers, but not enough to keep up. Again, it just really boils back to, if this defense wasn't cosmically bad and just like awful, they'd be 3. They'd be 2-4, 3-3 maybe. But yeah, here we are.
No, this is not a defense you can trust quite yet. So maybe they'll get it figured out on the bye week.
Hey, that'd be fun.
Bye weeks fix everything, right?
That's right.
And then before we get out of here, Steeg, I tasked you with one thing before we left tonight. Do you have that one thing ready?
Got it right here.
Perfect.
Been ready for it all night.
The floor is yours.
Beautiful. How can I lead into this? Big fucking dub alert. Put some sirens in the background. USF men's soccer, who I've been quietly but very auspiciously and suspiciously watching this year, because I'm very anxious to see what Bob Butehorn does with this squad that he put together. Put together a really good fucking win this past what day was this on? October 9th, 2 days ago. Monday. Sunday. Jesus Christ, I'm having a stroke over here.
It happens.
But USF beat Tulsa in men's soccer, which is quite a rousing victory. Tulsa is ranked in the top 25 consensusly. They were ranked as high as number 14 in the coaches poll. So USF taking down a top 25 team there. They defeated them 2-1, and they remain undefeated in conference play to start the year. Really weird because of the points and how ties work and all that stuff. They're actually fourth in the conference right now because of hurricane cancellations and things moving around. But regardless, undefeated in conference play is a great way to start the year and getting a good top 25 victory out of it. They were actually behind 1-0 after the 68th minute. Tulsa scored. They have quite a potent attack, but USF was able to limit them to only 3 shots on goal. So really good to see there. Scoring for USF got started by Alfred Perez in the 73rd minute. So pretty shortly thereafter was able to respond quickly. And the game-winning goal, Sagan Afalobi, scored in the 80th or 81st minute. If you have not seen the live replay where Ryan Olquist and I think it's Derek Sharp give the live call on it, it is absolutely phenomenal. Ryan, for having very little affiliation to USF aside from calling games, I think his voice cracked and he hit an octave that I didn't think was possible for a man of his nature to be able to hit. So really fun video to watch there. But yeah, it's a great victory for Bob Butehorn. It's actually their first top 25 victory since they last beat Tulsa last year when they were ranked number 21 as well. So a lot of good history there. And so I'm very excited to see what they can do. And same thing with the women's soccer team. They also had a great victory the other night over another formidable conference opponent in Memphis. So both of the football clubs are doing pretty all right to start the year. You know, non-conference didn't go too great, but all you got to do is win a couple conference games and you set yourself up for success.
Yep. And then quickly, women's golf finishes third at the Dale McNamara Invitational. Pretty solid outing. I think they led after the first 36 holes. Conveniently enough, oh man, I'll be honest, they had a pretty brutal final day. 11 over par. Tulsa actually ended up winning that, so that's pretty funny how that shakes out.
So there was a hashtag SID fuck up on the article when they first posted it. It said a strong third round led to a third place finish, and they quickly changed that to strong second round led to a third place finish, conveniently skipping the part where they really didn't putt well on day 2 there.
Yeah, they did not. But hey, women's golf not abysmal, unlike USF football's defense. So shout out to Coach Brennan and the crew over there. I think Melanie Green's probably one of the better golfers USF women's golf has had over the last decade. So I'm excited to see her career. Yeah, I think that's it, man. Under an hour. Let's go. Let's freaking go.
Do you want to talk about fantasy real quick?
Oh yeah. Oh damn. Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. Let me pull those up. Let me pull those numbers up. Do you have them by chance?
I have this week's numbers. Yes.
Perfect.
You want me to go ahead and read them off?
Yeah.
I'm going to sneak this one in here. Cross country men's finished 14th, women's finished 9th at the FSU Invitational. That's all right.
Not last.
No, not even close to last. There were 30 teams. Holy shit. They were in the top half.
Let's go, bro. We're a running school now.
All right, week 6, USF fantasy football here. At the top of the board was Hot Fuzz.
You're welcome.
With 69.5 points.
Very nice.
Second, the Horn Dogs with 38.8 points. Third, the Best of the Rest with 37.3, which means a Joe's Icy Gaze came in last with 31 points this week.
Can we talk about how many of my players actually played?
Yes. So you didn't have QB, no running back, no wide receiver, no tight end, no defensive line.
Incredible.
Just for everyone's reference, it was not a great week for anybody besides Nathan. We gave the offensive line, since they played so well, we gave them 15 points instead of the usual 10. So 15, about half of Steeg's points came from Dustin Hall.
Yep. So
Give me an extra one just for my offensive lineman being healthy, please, and filling in at center.
technically, all of our offensive linemen were healthy. So
Oh, they
you're
are?
welcome.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah,
I did not write down y'all's team, so
we knew how to pick them. You know,
Yeah.
we could tell before the season.
we're all Hanson and we know how to pick. Well, you guys do.
That's true. That's accurate. Yeah, it's, fun. This has been really fun. Jason Vaughn, I think, led the best of the rest with 7 points. Devon Hicks and Amaris Brown had 6 points. But I mean, the story of the day, as always, Xavier Weaver and Brian Petit continue to be absolute studs for your boy with a combined 45.5 points, accounting for like 60%. And I didn't have Latrell Williams, Chris Carter didn't register a sack or a stat. Antonio Greer didn't play, and Daquan Evans didn't play, and I still whooped y'all's ass by 30 points. So get there.
I mean, nobody saw my last week, I guess, but you know.
Well,
I'm
no,
always going to add to how we're getting.
Yeah. Congrats.
That's true.
Man.
Everybody has won at least 1 week this year. So what a competition.
What a competition.
Yeah, I mean, fucking Jesus Christ. I keep on looking over at my team, and I put a tally mark if they play, and I'm just it's
oh boy,
like the first week of prison. There's only 5.
Oh man.
Oh my god.
All right, let's get out of here. Be sure to check out at Stampede SBN on Twitter, at Seth Varnadore, who's now verified on Twitter, at Robert Stieglife, who is not verified on Twitter, at Bulls Nathan SBN, who is verified on Twitter. Make sure you check us out. Be sure to join us for the TDS Film Room Wednesday night as we break down that 4th down play once again, as we nailed it. We 100% with accuracy just drilled that play, and we'll talk about everything else in between. For Seth, Steeg, I am Nathan Bond. As always, thanks for listening to the Bulluminati podcast. Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.